I'm Caroline Hyde. This is Bloomberg Technology, and we're live from Boston this week, showcasing the innovation, diversity, and power of the regional tech economy. We're coming to you today from the annual Chamber of Commerce event at Boston's Convention Center. Coming up in the next hour, how does Amazon's Alexa hold its own as competition heats up? We'll hear from Amazon Alexa SVP Tom Taylor. Plus, the CEO of Boston-based Wayfair joins the show. How did the online retailer break out in a crowded space of home furnishings? And the governor of Massachusetts, it's Charlie Baker, on the incentives to lure Amazon to the Bay State to set up its second headquarters. First to our top story, of course, the top story of the digital assistant in our everyday lives, and the latest breakthrough in this technological space that has amazed and, well, scared some people. When Google's new program called Duplex called to make a restaurant reservation, it fooled the human on the other end of the line. Duplex spoke and sounded just like you or I might, complete with hmms, ums, and pauses. And now people are calling for AI assistants to identify themselves. Well, there's one computer voice familiar to millions, and it's Amazon's Alexa. And in a year when, according to eMarketer, 61 million Americans are using a voice-enabled speaker, Amazon is eating up that market share. Currently, 67% of those people are using Amazon's Echo, which comes with, you guessed it, Alexa. Joining us now is someone intimately familiar with Amazon's AI voice. He's Tom Taylor, Senior Vice President for Amazon's Alexa. Tom, welcome to the show.
Carolyn, thanks so much for having us here today.
Is AI getting too good? Is it getting too human-like? Are we worried about the voices not being identifiable?
Well, certainly a very interesting demo, much to be inspired by. I think it shows how important it is to always start with your customer and really think about how to work backwards from a customer. This is something that I believe Amazon has always done from our very early days in our retail roots. Go ahead.
And so, therefore, you do have dominant market share, about 2/3. How are you keeping up with the innovation to ensure that you remain that strong and ahead of the competition?
Yeah, I think there's lots of things. We're very excited by the success we've had and the reaction customers have had with Alexa. I think there's many things that we'll be doing over the next year and many years. Just rattling them off. First of all, we believe very much in there'll be many AIs that win. We don't think there's going to be one. And in fact, we would encourage that. As an example, we recently demoed Alexa talking with Cortana, and we expect there'll be many more, whether they're big AIs or if Bloomberg were to have one.
Would you work with Google, for example?
Of course. I think that would be an interesting. It's the same interaction you'd expect to be able to talk to as many friends and experts that you know. Two is we want to be able to make the ability for developers and builders to create their own AI. That's very important, and we've done this through tens of thousands of developers and tens of thousands of skills that they can build, even down to recently we released a product called Blueprints, which allowed you or I to make a very simple skill that people are doing at a local level. And finally, we believe in what we might call ambient computing, which is you should be able to hear and talk to your technology anywhere. That's the whole power I think people have seen with voice, is I am not tethered to my keyboard or to my phone. At any time I can speak. So I think you'll see Alexa being successful in the home. We hope to see it at work, in the car, on the go, and everywhere.
Exactly that. At the moment, we are dominant in terms of requesting music. It also is pretty important for asking it questions. But where do you want to see it being picked up, making inroads sooner rather than later? Where do you think is the low-hanging fruit?
Sure. I think as we listen to customers, they're saying, this is great in my home, but if I want to listen to music, I'd sort of like that to go along with me when I go to the gym or when I get in my car. I think there's many other use cases as well of the skills that you provide. Think about all the assistants, how Alexa might be able to save you time, save your own mental thinking. And so we'll continue to explore all those different directions.
We're sat here in Boston. You have a significant talent pool here, helping building out Alexa. I mean, where are you getting the talent from? Is the competition getting much more fierce for them, considering, as you say, there are a lot of frenemies out there, whether they be Google or indeed Cortana? Yeah.
Well, certainly, as you know, and we all know, Boston has been an incredible tech hub. We've we've been here for many years. We have over 1,200 employees that are scientists, engineers, machine learning experts, linguists. So it's fascinating for us to have the ability to attract talent from universities and industry. And we've recently announced that we're opening new buildings here, and we'll be hiring thousands more employees over the coming years. So Boston's a great tech hub for us.
When you're looking at building out these tech hubs, when you're looking at building out the power of voice-enabled assistants, what about the issue of concerns of you and I have about listening? How have you tackled that in terms of engagement, user engagement, public relations?
Sure. It's a great question. I think every consumer should be concerned about privacy. I think Amazon's done a great job starting with that customer, working backwards. So just taking the example of listening, people often, it's incorrect that Alexa's always listening. She's specifically waiting to hear this word, Alexa. And until then, that's only happening on the device. It's not going to the cloud. And so, that's one of many protections. We have a mute button. We have the ability to control what records Alexa has. We don't sell your data. Alexa does not sell your data. So there's many things that we feel makes us very aligned with a customer, and that's what builds trust over the long term. Easily lost, hard won.
Do you think that's a competitive advantage? Do you think some of the other competitors aren't as aligned?
I won't speak for them. I certainly feel that Amazon is very aligned with customers, and we've demonstrated that over many years.
What about also the interesting topic that keeps on getting brought up is the ethics of AI. As we start to all talk about and use in our everyday language, people are now wondering how we coordinate it with humanity, how we ensure that it's used to best serve us and doesn't get out of control. How are you internally debating this? Because fascinatingly, we just saw just earlier this week that those building assistants for Google have actually been, well, resigning because they're worried about the work that Google is doing with the Pentagon, for example. Yeah. Is that something that there's an internal debate within Amazon as well?
I wouldn't say it's a debate. I think we feel very strongly that we need to be very aligned with the customer. I think ethics is maybe a hard question to answer, but if we're very capable and we're very aligned with customers, meaning we're acting on their behalf and we're transparent how we're acting on their behalfs, then we'll make good decisions. We are working with other companies and industry to think about ethics, but most importantly, it's down to, are we building good capabilities that are right for customers, and are we aligned with their interests?
What about if your customer is the Pentagon?
Well, it's certainly not today with Alexa.
What about the focus that you have in terms of developing AI going forward that we might not have associated yet? Are there new frontiers that you think AI will start to be used in that we haven't yet thought about? I think many of us noticed that the car will be the next key use case, but is there developments within medicine, for example, where you think it could drive more use?
I think machine learning as a technique could be applied in many things, medicine, and in many good, positive ways. And again, we want to enable that through other parts of our Amazon, say our AWS services. But I think it's very exciting of the capabilities that are coming from large data sets, incredibly less expensive compute power, or allowing us to apply machine learning to a whole bunch of new topics. And I think that's fantastic for society.
What about for Amazon as a whole? Because of course are we right in assuming that Amazon Alexa really the driving force has been for the shopping part, for the addiction to Amazon Prime? What other parts of the business do you think that it will help drive and scale?
Well, I think at this moment, it's very early days for us in machine learning and voice with Alexa. We love that customers are interacting with her in very unexpected ways. We're sort of doubling down on those opportunities in the home, again, at work and everywhere in between. We're not in a big hurry about monetization. We just think this is an opportunity for us to really create a new opportunity for customers to interact with technology in a whole new way.
Do you think it will always be a very open platform? I mean, you work alongside Spotify, but obviously Amazon has its own music products.
Sure.
How do you ensure that that all remains an open playing field and you don't, in some way, cause roadblocks?
Well, Amazon has always believed very strongly in open playing field. I think if you look at what we've done with AWS is in that way. Even in our retail business, our marketplace is very driven by making small, medium-sized businesses very successful on our platform. You'll see the same thing here. It's just how we believe customers are best served.
And you're a man who travels. You've come from Seattle. You're here to see the base that is Amazon Alexa here in Boston. Where else are the hubs that you feel Amazon Alexa is being driven forward at the moment? Is this the #1 city for it?
Well, indeed, we have probably 12 different technology hubs. Of course, Seattle, places in Silicon Valley, Vancouver, also in Europe, Berlin, Cambridge in UK, Turin. I mean, we have a number of sites around the world. But that's part of what you need to do for customers that speak all different languages and where you have competency and skilled scientists and engineers throughout the world.
Would this be a good place for your second headquarters?
Well, I'm as excited as anybody to find out, but we're certainly excited about the investment we've already made here in Boston. It's great.
And it's going to be an office very near this where we sit right now. Tom Taylor, thank you for making time with us as you visit this city. That, of course, was Tom Taylor, Senior Vice President for Amazon Alexa, joining us right here in Boston. And meanwhile, Amazon is taking a page out of the NFL playbook. Only it's not about how to run a QB sneak. Rather, it's how to make their board of directors more inclusive. The e-commerce giant has adopted a new policy to consider women and minorities for all open seats on its board of directors. Amazon says the new policy, quote, formalizes a practice already in place. Amazon previously faced criticism for opposing a recruiting requirement rule similar to the NFL's Rooney Rule that helped increase the diversity of its coaching staff by requiring teams to interview at least one minority candidate. Currently, Amazon's board has 0 people of color and a third made up of women. That third would place it above average for e-commerce companies. Now coming up, Apple CEO Tim Cook gets frank with President Trump on the importance of open trade. We'll bring you the highlights next. And if you like Bloomberg News, check us out on the radio. You can listen on the Bloomberg Radio app, Bloomberg.com, and in the US on Sirius XM. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to a special edition of Bloomberg Technology right here at Boston's Convention Center. Now, Apple CEO Tim Cook has finally revealed what was discussed in a closed-door meeting last month with President Trump. Cook opened up about the meeting this past Sunday in an interview for the David Rubenstein show on Bloomberg Television, saying he stressed his opposition to the administration's approach to trade with China. For more, let's bring in Bloomberg's Emily Chang live from Seattle. Emily, we were desperate to really understand what had been said between President Trump and Tim Cook. What have we learned?
Well, now we know a little bit more about what Tim Cook had to say to President Trump. Of course, we knew the topic was trade. We could assume that the topic was trade with China. But now that we know that Tim Cook put a little bit more meat on the bones and talked about how he doesn't think tariffs in particular are the right approach. Take a listen to what he had to say to David Rubenstein.
I met with the president the next day, and, I wouldn't want to say what he said because that's not the way I look at it. What I talked about was I talked about trade and the importance of trade and how I felt that two countries trading together make the pie larger. And that it's true, I think undoubtedly true, that not everyone has been advantaged from that in either country, and we've got to work on that. But I felt that tariffs were not the right approach there, and I showed him some more of analytical kinds of things to demonstrate why. We also talked about immigration and the importance of fixing the dreamer issue now. We're only one court ruling away from a catastrophic case there.
Now, Caroline, as we discussed, we've seen some signals that the president is moderating his stance on China, moderating his stance on a potential trade war, given these signals he sent about the sanctions on ZTE. We know there is a Chinese delegation meeting with U.S. officials this week. And from what we can tell, Apple has not been impacted by trade tensions so far.
Maybe it was all open ears to Tim Cook. I mean, also we heard from the Apple CEO really rather talking up the amount that they contribute to the U.S. economy. Can you give us some specifics there?
Right. Tim Cook, quick to point out the contributions that Apple is making. He talked about how the company over the next 5 years will be injecting $350 billion into the U.S. economy, this in part by paying taxes, in part by hiring, and in part by building a new campus. We don't know where this new campus will be, but here is what Tim Cook had to say about it.
We're going to create a new site, a new campus within the United States that is different, in a different location than our two current huge campuses in California and Texas. We're going to hire 20,000 people, and we're going to spend $30 billion in CapEx over the next several years. And so number one, we're investing a ton in this country. And then, yes, we're also going to buy some of our stock because we view our stock as a good value. And so from a shareholder point of view, if we can buy stock from people that think that it's worth less than we do, then that's good for the company. And it's good for the economy as well, because if people sell stock, they pay taxes on their gains.
And with these buybacks, Apple is returning to that sort of traditional corporate behemoth. And so analysts we've talked to say it's not so much about what is the next lily pad or the next huge innovation for Apple. It's really about being a strong and stable company that can demonstrate growth and keep shareholders happy. Caroline.
Keep shareholders happy, Emily. But interestingly, he's got stronger, perhaps curter words for some rivals out there that maybe dine out on our data. And all of the time, at the same time, we're hearing today that Facebook has been trying to reduce particularly some bad actors, been getting rid of users on the Facebook platform. What do we know in terms of the, what is it, like 500 million user accounts they've just shut down?
583 million fake accounts that Facebook has announced it has taken down. But here's what is surprising. That's actually 100 million less than the amount of fake accounts it took down last quarter. So in the last 6 months, the social network has taken down 1.3 billion fake accounts. That gives you the idea of the scale of this problem that Facebook is dealing with. In addition to this, the company took down more than 800 million pieces of spam. It took down millions of pieces of hate speech, of sexual content. Now, the good news from Facebook is that AI in particular has become a lot more helpful in flagging some of these issues. For example, it flagged about 100% of the spam. It's much less successful when it comes to flagging hate speech. But certainly, this demonstrates the scale of the problem that Facebook is attacking, and very interesting coming in the context of those remarks that Tim Cook made at the Duke commencement ceremonies over the weekend about companies, not mentioning Facebook in particular, but companies trading on user privacy. Caroline.
Fantastic, Emily Chang. Thank you very much indeed. Great insights into the Tim Cook interview. And be sure, of course, to watch the full conversation with Apple CEO Tim Cook when a new season of the David Rubenstein Show kicks off in June. Now, coming up, much more from Boston. We'll discuss the city's thriving education scene with the president of Bentley University. Welcome back to a special edition of Bloomberg Technology, live from Boston. One thing that makes this city stand out is its education. Several of the top schools in the country are right here, serving as a talent pipeline to some of the biggest companies in the world. And here to discuss Boston's education scene, none other than Gloria Larson, president of Bentley University. Wonderful to be here with you again, Gloria.
It's fabulous to see you too.
Gloria, how are you ensuring that the next generation of students that you're teaching are set up, they're right and ready for this age of technological advancement?
Something that has driven me crazy is too many schools believe that it's either hard skills or soft skills when it's an and, not an or. And at Bentley, what we try to do is merge liberal arts with the type of business skill sets that we know they're going to need day one, but also the lifelong learning skills. Every job today is a hybrid job. You're going to need a combination of things. You're going to need technology prowess. You're going to need to think about a future in which you're going to constantly have to be upgrading your skill set, because the job that you want today is going to evaporate and you're going to have to be upskilled for a new job. So I think schools are not fully adapting to new world. I don't think they're inviting business into schools often enough, into the classroom, working with them on curriculum. That used to be a dirty word, having business work with you on curriculum, and now it's really, I think, the coin of the realm.
What about students forming their own businesses? I mean, many a famous tech company we talk about now was born in the bedroom of a student, Diggs. What are you seeing that being reflected at Bentley at the moment in the entrepreneurial spirit?
Absolutely, and in fact, we have classes in entrepreneurship. I'm not sure you can teach entrepreneurship itself. You can teach how to read a balance sheet, you can teach how to come up with a business plan, but you can teach innovation, and a lot of that comes through class projects, inviting companies, other startups in to talk to you about how you take an idea into fruition. And I think when students work on teams and solve problems, and especially when there's great diversity of thinking on teams, that sort of starts to whet the appetite for being able to bring that innovation to life. So we're working really hard on making classrooms and outside the classroom a laboratory for the kids who know that they're going to want to go into a world that really they haven't seen the things they want to make don't exist yet. I don't know if you've seen the book, The Future Computed, by the Microsoft CEO and his artificial intelligence czar. His argument is that the soft skills are going to quickly dominate because AI is overtaking so many of the things that basic analytics, accounting skills aren't going to be needed by human graduates any longer. So we're going to focus, we're going to continue to double down on the soft skills. I think that's where the future is.
One of the worries about AI is baking in bias and accentuating it. What about teaching not only innovation but inclusion? Is that something that, I mean, you embody it. You're the first ever president of Bentley University who is female.
You know, I think diversity and inclusion, I think my generation got caught up on the word diversity, and we didn't really understand real inclusion. Just having one of every type of person on a team isn't what makes a team click. What's important on the inclusion front is that you learn to have a different set of perspectives. Decisions are better. We know that when women are brought to the table where they've not been before, that greater innovation occurs. We know that the bottom line grows. The same thing for individuals of color and just about every other type of diversity. Here's the silver lining. Millennials and Z-Gens get it. They were born into a diverse world. They accept and expect inclusion, and now it's up to us to offer that.
Gloria Larson, always wonderful to have you here. We'll let you join the party behind us. That was Bentley University President Gloria Larson there. Up next, we're going to be speaking with a CEO whose company is bringing augmented reality to the world of online shopping. Niraj Shah, CEO of Wayfair. This is Bloomberg. To a special edition of Bloomberg Technology. I'm Caroline Hyde, and we're live from the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce's annual meeting at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center as it pours with rain outside, but inside it's holding up. And now it also is hopping up, of course, in e-commerce. The first name that, of course, usually pops into your head might be Amazon. And in the realm of online-only furniture sales, Wayfair is the largest in the US, and they're using augmented reality to enhance that experience.
It's virtual reality for retail.
There you go.
There we go. The grill goes on the patio.
In its quest to be the largest online home furnishings store, Wayfair is going high-tech.
We have about 10 million products on our site, and we are trying to rapidly build a catalog of 3D models that lets us offer a huge selection of models for people, for our customers, to visualize in their homes.
Through Oculus Rift or on a smartphone using the Wayfair app, shoppers can scan a room or outdoor living area, select a piece of furniture, and see what it would look like in the space, exactly to scale.
Here are 4 patio chairs and a table, and I'm trying to move them to decide where I want to put them.
Steve Conine is co-founder and co-chairman of Wayfair. As this Boston company's business has grown, so too has the size of its engineering team, along with the complexity of the software features it's building.
We are currently in the Wayfair Next lab space in the Wayfair offices. Wayfair Next is a team that we put together that has been really trying to help innovate on augmented and virtual reality solutions.
The company's undoubtedly innovating the $116 billion home furnishings industry, and its progress is exciting investors. But questions remain about its long-term viability. Wayfair isn't turning a profit, and e-commerce competition is heating up as Amazon and Walmart ramp up their home goods categories. But Wayfair hopes its focus on presentation will pay off.
If we can give you a tool that makes it better to shop while you're in your home, that's helpful for us on a bottom line. It helps keep customers, excited about using our platform, excited about shopping for furniture and home decor on the internet.
Conine says the more description and imagery to help customers make purchases, the fewer returns Wayfair will see. And that's leading to more repeat customers.
Look at that. Wow.
Ann Mostu, Bloomberg, Boston, Massachusetts.
Joining us now is the CEO of Wayfair, Niraj Shah. Welcome to Bloomberg Technology.
Thank you for having me.
Big investment in augmented reality, big investment in the customer. When will it pay off?
What you see in the phones today, you already see the devices starting to have the technology it needs for mainstream adoption. We think over the next year or two, it'll become a classic way that you always would shop when you're using furniture and decor.
Do you think it will help you stay ahead of the competition?
Absolutely. Technology is a critical piece of how we provide the customer experience that's really driven our success. We have over 1,000 engineers in the company today, and the only category we focus on is home. And so as we improve the experience, customers come to us more and more, and that's the virtuous cycle that's really driving our growth.
I mean, it's seen in your revenue up 40%, but when are we going to see that in the bottom line? When are we going to see profitability?
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting, not everyone notes, the United States has been profitable 5 of the last 6 quarters. We just guided that it'll be profitable again. People mix the U.S. with our international segment. Our international segment's much younger, growing dramatically quickly. That also will become profitable in the future. So we're actually already there.
You're already investing as well, and that obviously eats into the bottom line. You're investing particularly in your supply chain and delivery.
Yes. Yeah.
When will that come on tap, and is that really to try and keep ahead of the competition like Amazon?
Yeah, no one has built the delivery infrastructure we built for home goods. Our goods are big and bulky. It's a big difference. Amazon's the leader in delivering small packages, and we're the leader in delivering large packages. And so we are actually already seeing the gains from that. We have market-leading customer satisfaction scores that are driving the repeat cycle and that profitability. So the truth is, as we continue to invest, we actually are getting that paid back very quickly. Our advertising pays back in less than a year, so on and so forth. We just grew $450 million year over year last quarter, $1.8 billion growth rate.
As you grow, though, the payback also might have to come from you back to the U.S. government in forms of taxes. The Supreme Court looking at how online-only presences might have to be taxed in certain states. How are you in terms of the regulatory environment?
You know what's really interesting there, because we were one of the folks in the recent court case there at the Supreme Court. We already collect and remit tax in 80% of the United States. We actually just want an even playing field. We think, in fact, what the court should say is going forward, everyone, online or not online, should collect and remit. Today, where the federal rule is different than state rules, it creates a bit of a mess, but we would actually love an even playing field, and we're already at 80%.
Level playing field. How are the playing fields in different countries? I mean, I see Wayfair, we see it, use it in the United Kingdom, you're internationally spread. How do you see your operations in different countries?
Yeah, so what we find is the customer experience is similar in terms of customers want access to selection, great visual merchandising, great service, convenient delivery. These are the things that we focus on providing. And that's what drives their behavior. In order to provide it, you need different things in different countries in terms of how you integrate with the suppliers, how you provide logistics. Every country is a little different. But what we do is we build the software and the physical operations to bridge that so the customer can get the experience they want.
I mean, tonight we're here at the annual meeting in the Boston Chamber of Commerce. You're receiving an award. You're being pinned up to a certain extent. What is it about Boston that has allowed Wayfair to grow so much? I mean, is this always going to be your home?
Boston, the talent in Boston is incredible. So if you start thinking about it being the world's leader in biotech, you think about Harvard and MIT being in the geography along with 100 other colleges and universities. You think about the leaders in asset management, places like Fidelity and Wellington. You think about the other companies that are leaders in their respective fields. What you start to realize is that Boston, is a center which draws top talent. And whether you're at MGH or some of the leading hospitals in the world, or you're going to, put your skills to work in building what we think will become the, United States a world leader in home goods, we think that what you need is talent in order to win, in order to provide the customer with that experience. So you can't be in a place where there isn't talent, and we're very excited to be here in Boston.
Certainly everyone else at this party is excited as well. Congratulations on the award, and thank you for being here with us today. That was Niraj Shah, CEO of Wayfair and also Serial Time entrepreneur. Thank you for joining us. And coming up, our interview with the governor of Massachusetts itself. It's Charlie Baker. That's next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to a very special edition of Bloomberg Technology, live from Greater Boston. We're here at the Chamber of Commerce. It's their annual meeting right here at the Convention Center. And I'm very pleased to say we're now going to be welcoming our Bloomberg Bay Area radio listeners as well. 106.1 FM, you've got to tune in to the radio of Bloomberg. And I'm joined by the Boston Bureau Chief and indeed the man who takes the helm of the radio, Tom Maroney. Great to have you here, Tom.
Thank you very much.
And we have, of course, joined by a very special guest. It is Charlie Baker, Governor of Massachusetts. Tom, take it away with the first question.
Well, Governor, everybody wants to know about Amazon. We talk a lot at Bloomberg about Amazon. Can you give us any insight? Is Boston going to get the second headquarters?
Well, I certainly think Amazon's going to have a presence here one way or another. They already have several thousand employees here. They're adding several thousand more in a building that's going to go up right down the street from here. And I certainly think they appreciate what we bring to the table, which is a wonderful collection of tech talent clusters, terrific environment generally, a great place to raise families, and we have terrific public schools and great communities, and I fully expect we'll be in the hunt.
I want to follow up on that. When you were elected, we had that awful winter, 2015-16. We all still remember it.
Some of us will never forget it.
That's true, including me and you. You had pledged at the time that you were going to fix public transit, the MBTA. I take the commuter rail into Boston every day. I have delays. There are mechanical problems. I know there have been some improvements, but if we get Amazon, are we going to be ready?
Well, actually today I was over inspecting some new Orange Line cars that will be starting to land at the end of this year, and then will land continuously along with new Red Line cars for the next several years. And we're talking about 50% increases in both the Orange Line and the Red Line. And about 2 weeks ago, we spec'd out a proposal to increase capacity on the Green Line by another 50% over the course of the next decade. And we're also making investments all the time in the commuter rail. I happen to think that these investments are good ones. All in, we're talking billions of dollars in infrastructure around public transportation. But we also have a Futures Commission that's taking a look at what the next act over the next 10, 20, 30 years is going to look like in transportation. And I have a feeling that's going to have some elements in it around the electrification of transportation, autonomous vehicles, and all the rest that will probably also change the game. But I believe we'll be well suited to deal with whatever comes with respect to employment and growth.
What about the investment that you have to make?
By the way, I'd rather have this problem than the alternative problem, which is not having to deal with growth, not having to deal with the highest number of people working in state history and things like that.
Problems aside, what about the investment of billions that you're making in incentives to woo the likes of Amazon to come here? You did it for GE as well, and now GE itself finds itself in not the most sunnier climes in terms of its business outlook. Is it worth it?
Well, we're not making billions of dollars of investments in companies. We're making billions of dollars of investments in our communities. And those investments that I was just talking with Tom about, those are going to, transportation investments will be available to everybody. With respect to GE, we basically made a deal with them where we agreed to make a significant investment in property that we already own that they then would be able to occupy. But it's still our property, and I think in some respects those are the right kinds of investments. Those are ones that either benefit the Commonwealth or benefit the public, and those are typically the kinds of investments we prefer to make.
Talking about property, I want to ask you about your regulatory outlook for the likes of Airbnb. I mean, we're building technology here, but sometimes the regulatory environment isn't always as welcoming as giants like Airbnb would wish. You've been pushing this, Marty Walsh has been pushing it as well. What do you foresee in terms of that business and how it can function in Boston?
Well, I'm sort of use the Uber and Lyft example as a precursor. We came up with what I think was the right framework for Uber and Lyft to be able to operate here or any other transportation networking company 2 years ago. And last year in 2017, there were 65 million transportation networking rides in Massachusetts, which is obviously a gigantic increase over previous periods. And on the Airbnb piece, my view is kind of the same, which is what we ought to do is try and come up with a regulatory model that for those people who are simply using it once in a while as a platform to support a summer house in the Cape or something like that, fine, by all means be my guest. But if you're going to be renting that room out or that apartment out 150 nights a year, as far as I'm concerned, you're in the hotel business and you ought to pay the same tax that a hotel operator pays.
Well, Caroline, we know in Boston that the mayor's had a bit of a tussle with Airbnb. He's just come out with a new ordinance, proposed ordinance, that says we are not going to tolerate these multiple unit owners, so-called stealth hotels. Do you support what the mayor's doing in Boston? Will we see this across Massachusetts? If you own many units, you're not going to go through Airbnb in this state?
No, I think the way it ought to work is it ought to be some sort of statewide standard that applies to everybody. That's easier from a regulatory point of view, and it's certainly easier from a business point of view. But I share the mayor's frustration with people who literally are purchasing units or renting units simply to turn around and flip them and make them Airbnb units. That's not what developing housing here in the city of Boston is supposed to be all about, and I'm sympathetic to his concerns on that.
Would you outlaw those units across the state?
I think what's going on in Boston is a reflection of what I would describe as hotelier behavior on the part of people who are buying and renting these units, and I have sympathy for that. What I think we ought to be able to do is solve this problem statewide, come up with a formula that works for everybody. But if you're going to be in the hotel business, you should pay hotel taxes just like everybody else. And a lot of those folks, for all intents and purposes, are in the hotel business.
Let's stick with the regulatory theme here, because there's been a change to the regulatory environment. So that yesterday we understand the Supreme Court will be allowing betting on sports. What's the reaction of Massachusetts? Is this going to be a state that might adopt that?
I think we need to think. Look, I think we should take it seriously. We had a leadership meeting with the legislature yesterday where we started talking about this. We're obviously going to talk to Major League Football, baseball, hockey, basketball, and all the rest, and get their sense about this thing. We'll probably talk to the big platforms like DraftKings, which is located here in the Commonwealth, and we'll also talk to the folks who are in the casino business and get their sense about this. But it's hard for me to see how we could ignore this and choose not to pursue it.
Are we going to see a commission established for this? Who's going to police all this? You thought that out yet?
I think that depends a lot on the nature, on what type of industry we end up supporting from a statutory point of view. Depending upon where we land, you'd use one model or another. But I certainly think it's something that's going to be on the radar and people are going to take seriously.
I mean, speaking with
people will be in the position where they'll literally be betting on games while they're going on. And the whole notion of what's going to be possible under this is dramatically different than having sports books in Vegas, period. I mean, this is a much more significant expansion.
It seems to me, Governor, that it's a lot like the marijuana business. It's new, it's unexplored territory. We have a cannabis commission. They're talking about cannabis cafes, all kinds of things, but it's slow going. Do you see that sort of process evolving with betting, sports betting?
Maybe. I mean, I'm of the opinion that slow going on the cannabis law, as the Cannabis Commission is pursuing it, is the right way to go. Because there's still a lot of unanswered questions about how you police it, regulate it, and oversee it. And I think we'll have some of the same kinds of questions with respect to sports betting. But that said, it's certainly something we have to take seriously and engage in a pretty aggressive way with our colleagues in the legislature and with the folks who would be involved in the industry if it were developed here.
How are you engaging in terms of infrastructure projects, particularly gas pipeline projects? This is something that you yourself has got involved in. We've seen a few projects axed. Why? Is there a concern? Are we going to see more gas pipelines being built within Massachusetts and helping with the energy costs?
Well, a lot of that gets decided by the federal government, not so much by the states. I mean, the two big projects we have that are directly related to us right now is a big hydro project coming down from Canada and an offshore, deep water offshore wind project. Those are both over 1,000 megawatts. They're the two largest clean energy procurements in the state's history, and those are ones that we control through state statutes and are working with our colleagues in other states to pursue and to implement. And those are the ones that I believe we have the most control over. Some of the stuff with respect to gas ultimately gets decided by the feds.
Talking of clean energy, in California, they're focusing on making solar energy a real focal point, actually forcing it through. When you build a new home, you need a solar panel. Is that something that you would look at doing here?
Massachusetts has a really aggressive solar program, one of the most aggressive in the country. We support solar installations. The solar industry has been booming here for the better part of the past decade. I really want to get this hydro project done, this deep water project done, put a new regulatory framework that doesn't require a statutory update every year on the solar piece. We're also putting money in side by side with some of our researchers and private sector companies in storage, which has huge potential to take solar and wind to the next level, and that's really where I want us to focus our efforts in the short term.
Battery business in Massachusetts, we know from our reporting, is very robust. Are you satisfied with the progress we're making across the board? I know you've built in elements of alternative energy. Energy can be very expensive, especially in a cold winter here. Yes. Are there other things on the table we might be interested in hearing about? Or?
Well, part of what makes the hydro project and the wind projects interesting to me, and I know to a lot of people in Massachusetts, is the price points on these are very competitive. They're 24/7. The hydro is 24/7, 365, and the wind piece can generate a heck of a lot of energy, especially if you firm it up with storage. And I think the possibilities associated with battery technology and storage in particular can do a lot to deal with polar vortexes, hot summer days, and the issues that really translate into very high prices, and also, in many cases, the use of very dirty fuels, which has been a huge issue.
Those of us who live in Massachusetts have watched Cape Wind come and go, finally go, but now there's a project.
Yeah, Cape Wind was never going to meet any kind of market test like these deep water projects will. And I think in some respects that's what makes these projects a lot more interesting. I mean, if you're pricing deep water wind at a price that's either pretty competitive with, or in some cases even better than what people are paying in the market now, that's a real win-win for the environment and a win-win for residential purchasers.
And I'll tell you, it's farther offshore, so you get less opposition from those who don't like to see windmills in the sky. Right?
This is deep water federal. This is deep water, for the most part, it's owned by the feds.
Let's bring it close to home. Let's bring it right here where we are sitting in the Boston Chamber of Commerce, the celebration of technology. How are you going to ensure that Massachusetts as a state remains as open to technological advancement and remain a place where people can build businesses, as such as CEO of Wayfair that we just spoke to?
Well, I think the biggest thing we can do is continue to have great schools, which we do. Our K-12 system's been #1 in the country now for 7 years in a row. We continue to build on our STEM portfolio. We have a lot of STEM classes, a lot of STEM graduates, and we also have a lot of STEM internship programs. Many of the businesses that are here tonight take on a lot of high school kids and get them really interested in STEM that way. We also have colleges and universities here that graduate literally thousands of STEM graduates every year. UMass Amherst and UMass Lowell, between the two of them, are the two largest graduating campuses in the Commonwealth, graduating engineering students. I feel that if we really do what we should do on the student front, the pipeline will continue to flourish, and that's really what people are looking for when they're here.
Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker, great to have you here. You're going to be going into the party. The storm is brewing around us, but
the storm is roaring out there, actually.
But it's getting hot inside. We'll let you go and get a glass of wine. That, of course, is Bloomberg. Tom Maroney joining me as well. And we're pleased to say our audience listening in on Bloomberg Bay State Radio 106.1 FM. Thank you for listening. Now, coming up, we'll hear from Boston Mayor Marty Walsh, where the city stands on autonomous driving. That's next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology in Boston. All this week, we are talking to leaders in tech, education, and politics in our region, in this region. And our Boston bureau chief, Tom Maroney, caught up with Boston Mayor Marty Walsh and discussed, well, how the city has lured driverless technology.
Self-driving cars is an important incubator for us. We're doing other things, creative things in Boston. Some are working, some won't work, but if you don't try them, you don't know what's going to happen. So I think the self-driving cars, when it was first brought to me by Dan Coe, I said, he's telling me that, in 30 years, no one's going to be driving a car.
Now that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology, right here from a very stormy Boston. We'll continue to bring you highlights and interviews from the city tomorrow. We'll be at Optimus Ride's self-driving track, discussing the next step for autonomous tech. That's all for now, though. This is Bloomberg.